Josh, Joe, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, Stafford, C.J. Stroud, Herbert, The Bake Show, coming in at number 10, Super Bowl MVP, Jalen Hurts. Is this disrespectful to the Eagles QB?
Yeah, and Chris Sims, let me just let you know right now, if you happen to run into Mama Hurts, she's going to give you a piece of her mind. Let me tell you, someone with first-hand experience. I'm going to pinpoint, though, one guy ahead of him.
Herbert.
Having Jalen Hurts behind Justin Herbert it's one of those things where it tells me a lot about the evaluator and what they value and what they don't, and speaking of, what I'm about to talk about here, I am sure I am guilty of. This is not an attack on Chris Sims, I promise. But it speaks to just a massive ego of, I just know better than the games, the 5 years of evidence and careers and 150 games played between them doesn't matter as much as my eye. Because when one guy has not only been to 2 Super Bowls, but played really well in one and played great in the other, and not to mention NFC Championship game where they scored 50 and all of that stuff, and the other guy's playoff resume is we can show it to you, 2 of the most disappointing playoff performances of the last decade. The last of which came in a season where he had the number 1 defense in football, and all Jim Harbaugh asked of him, don't turn the ball over and we'll be fine. And in the playoff game, he had more interceptions than he had in the entirety of the regular season combined. I just don't know how you can say he's better than Jalen Hurts. It just seems that one ranking seems to me to be indefensible, other than, I just know.
But you didn't have an issue with, like, Baker?
Well, so I guess my point is this. I think everyone else ahead of him, I can see how you can construct the argument. Like Baker, I just talked about how good Jalen was in the Super Bowls. Baker's obviously never been in a Super Bowl. Baker's an awesome postseason performer. And I think that if you said, hey, drop Baker on, Philadelphia with Saquon and those guys, with those receivers, could he be super effective? CJ, it's very limited, but he has been, in 2 years, he has shown high highs. Jaden, a lot of that's projection, but it's the greatest rookie season we've ever seen. I can get it with the other guys, even if I wouldn't have, that wouldn't be my ranking. My point is, Herbert, to me, there's not an argument for Herbert other than I love how he looks in practice.
Look, I agree that it's slightly disrespectful for Jalen. And my argument was, I was saying, put him, you can argue about some of the other guys, but he definitely, at the very least, he should be 8th. And then I would keep Baker 9 and Herbert now as 10. So basically, switch him and Herbert positions.
Wow.
But
shots fired at Brock Purdy by you.
Well, I'm just going with the guys on there. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But my point is, you can see Chris Sims is just going off sheer, and I'm not faulting for this. I'm just saying it looks like his thinking was throwers of the football.
Yes.
Who are the best throwers of the football? Clearly, there's no other reason to put Justin Herbert ahead of Hurts. But when you just do it, throwers of the football, you can argue it because Herbert used to be, Harbaugh obviously has changed the way they play. 35 touchdowns, 37 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, things like that. We all know he can throw. Obviously, he hasn't done it in the postseason, and he's shown cracks there, and Hurts has been phenomenal. But I'm just saying those are.
This is just
that's what he's doing.
This is basically passing stats.
Yeah.
Because even Lamar, people are like, what about Lamar? Lamar's passing stats last 2 years have been excellent.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Now, Allen's haven't, but the running is sensational.
Allen's
and his
passing last year was excellent.
Right, was great.
So that's what it is.
I think with Hurts cannot let stuff like this impact him. He is in, and this is no disrespect, he is in the perfect situation. And he's got great receivers, even though they don't throw it a ton. He's got the great running back and the great offensive line, and he's a tremendous leader, and the tush push and all the things they do. Like, he is in the perfect situation, and he should not get caught up in, I'm not putting up the numbers. I'm not saying he is, but I'm not putting up these great numbers.
Okay. Guys. Oh my God, I can't believe we have to do this again, but we're going to do this a little bit differently. Oh my God. Guys. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let me start with the most lowest hanging fruit. Baker Mayfield is not an awesome playoff performer. That is one of the most insane statements I've ever heard. I have a whole separate video breaking down. Two of his great performances were against the Philadelphia Eagles when they were not a good team and had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And they literally could not tackle. Okay, like they literally, I mean, like Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, the Eagles, they were just like, what is going on with the Eagles? Like, they could not tackle. And then against the other big game that he had was against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was also a very similar type situation and was an absolute cartoon show of a game where the Steelers just kept turning the ball over every 5 seconds. So that's insane compared to what Jalen Hurts has actually done in the playoffs, aka the Super Bowl, against like legitimately high functioning, teams. So that's just insane. Matthew Stafford, from a career perspective, right? You can say, if you want to say that Stafford is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, he's had to struggle with being in Detroit and Jalen is in Philly. Like, that's fine. And I always say to Eagles fans, like, don't pull down your team to try to elevate Jalen. Don't be Lamar Jackson fans. Don't be Mahomes fans. Don't do it. But if we're talking about like of 2025 and we're talking about really like when we're having this conversation, we're really looking at it in like the most immediate window. We're not looking back on in what Stafford did in 2017 or, whatever. Like, hence why CJ Stroud and Jane Daniels can be there. Otherwise, like Aaron Rodgers would be there, right? Like that's how we kind of know that it's like always this weird kind of looking at the history, kind of looking at the most recent what's been happening. And so under that logic, no, Jalen Hurts has been significantly better than Matthew Stafford. That's just a fact. I'm not saying that they're going to retire and you're going to look back and say that Jalen Hurts is better than Stafford. But if we're looking at this immediate window right now and how the NFL is played, yes, Jalen Hurts has been better. Just a reality, especially if we're talking about complete football and not just a passer of the ball. Does Matthew Stafford throw a better ball than Jalen Hurts? Undeniable. But we know football is more than just that. I'm not even going to talk about the whole Justin Herbert thing because, first off, I just 1000% disagree with everything that Nick Wright is saying, and it's so funny that he wants to use that logic. I'm like on the fence about making a separate Justin Herbert video because he just always wants to bash Herbert. But since it's like in the service now of elevating Jalen Hurts, it's like this weird situation. Like it's just it'll you have to really stick the landing for that conversation. Quite frankly, but that's why the biggest one, Sam, talking about Baker Mayfield. Oh my goodness, and Stafford and Stroud. Like, what are we doing here? Especially because we're talking about immediacy of the moment, and even having Jaden Daniels above him. Again, if you believe that after you've seen 1 year of Jaden Daniels being better, or that you believe that he will have a better career, again, I'm fine with that. I'm open to all of that. But at the same time, if we're just going based off of on what we've seen in the immediate moment and whatnot, to keep downplaying what Jalen Hurts has done is so ridiculous. And then to act like Jalen Hurts has not been putting up big numbers is going to make my head absolutely erupt. I mean, what are we talking about here? We need to stop the madness. Okay, after completing 71.3% of his passes in his first Super Bowl and 77.3% Sunday in his Super Bowl, in his most recent Super Bowl, Hurts is now the most accurate passer in Super Bowl history with 73.3 career completion percentage, minimum 50 attempts. Troy Aikman is second at 70. Hurts also joined Aikman, Tom Brady, and Patrick Mahomes as the fourth quarterback in history to complete 70% of his passes in more than one Super Bowl. Hurts' 77.3% accuracy Sunday is the fourth highest in Super Bowl history, behind Phil Simms' 88% in Super Bowl What is that? 21 versus the Giants in 1986. Drew Brees is 82.1 in Super Bowl whatever versus the Colts in 2009, and Mahomes is 77. 2 years ago against Eagles. I can't do Roman numerals that quickly, and I don't feel like thinking about it in my mind right now. I can do it, but I don't feel like doing it. Hurts now has a career Super Bowl passer rating of 109.4, which is the 4th highest in NFL history, behind 3 Hall of Famers: Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, and Troy Aikman. He's the 7th quarterback to have a passer rating of 100 or higher in multiple Super Bowls, but only the 4th to have a 100 passer rating in his first 2 Super Bowls, along with Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, and Russell Wilson. Hurts has 6 career postseason games with a passer rating of at least 100. Only Patrick Mahomes has 7, had more before his 27th birthday. Only Russell, 4, also had more than 3. Regardless of age, only 8 quarterbacks have more career playoff games with a passer rating of 100 or higher: Brady, Mahomes, Joe Montana, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Brett Favre, Troy Aikman, and Drew Brees. Hurts now has 6 career postseason wins. Only Ben Roethlisberger and Patrick Mahomes won more playoff games before their 27th birthday. Both won 8. Tom Brady and Russell Wilson also won 6. Every other quarterback in Eagles history combined won 4 playoff games before their 27th birthday. All Donovan McNabb. Hurts completed 75% of his passes against the Rams, 71.4% against the Commanders, and 77.3% Sunday versus the Chiefs. The only quarterback with longer postseason streaks completing 70% of their passes are Matt Ryan, 5 games, Warren Moon, 4, and Joe Montana, 4. Hurts completed 74.3% of his passes during that 3-game span, and only 6 quarterbacks have had a higher completion percentage over any 3-game postseason span: Montana, Werner, Aikman, Goff, Patrick Mahomes, and Nick Foles. Hurts threw just 26 incomplete passes in the Eagles' 4 postseason wins this year. He was 61 for 91 for 71.4%, which is the 5th highest in a single postseason by a Super Bowl champion, but 2nd highest in Eagles history, behind none other than Nick Foles in 2017. Hurts has completed 71.3% of his passes in 6 postseason games. The only quarterback who had more accurate 6-game postseason spans are Aikman, Montana, and Mahomes. At 26 years, 186 days, Hurts became the 6th youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl MVP. Youngest was Patrick Mahomes, who was 24, when the Chiefs beat the 49ers and the blah, 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 blah. With 70 rushing yards and a 4.5 average in his first Super Bowl, and 72 yards and 6.5 average Sunday, Hurts became the first player in Super Bowl history with multiple games with 70 rushing yards and 4.5 average or higher. Only 7 other backs have had 70 rushing yards in more than 1 game, and Hurts is the first. Hold on, let me see. Hurts' career Super Bowl rushing average of 5.5 yards per carry is the 2nd highest all-time, minimum 25 carries, behind Patrick Mahomes, which is 6. Hurts' 4 career Super Bowl rushing touchdowns are tied for the 2nd most in Super Bowl history, behind Emmitt Smith. John Elway, Franco Harris, Thurman Thomas each had 4. Hurts' 10 career postseason rushing touchdowns are the 9th most in NFL history, most among active players, and now he's the only player in history with 10 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns in one season. And again, do not give me the tush push nonsense, because that is so insane, because the dude has plenty of other touchdowns that are beyond just a tush push, which I've already highlighted so many times. The guy has the record for most rushing yards in his Super Bowl that he broke twice, and there's 70 plus yards. So if you magically think that he's just doing the tush push 70 times a game, you're delusional. Hurts now has 5 career postseason games where he's completed at least 70% of his passes. Only 5 quarterbacks in history have had more: Patrick Mahomes, Troy Aikman, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Josh Allen. Hurts' career postseason completion percentage of 66.8% is the 6th highest in NFL history, minimum 100 attempts. Hurts now owns 6 of the 15th highest passer ratings in Eagles playoff history. Of the 9 others, Donovan McNabb and Nick Foles have 3 apiece, and Ron Jaworski, Rodney P, and Tommy Thompson 1 each. Let's see. Hurts threw only 26 incomplete passes in the postseason, or 6.5 per game. That's the 3rd fewest incomplete passes by a Super Bowl champion quarterback. Even with his interception Sunday, Hurts has just 3 career interceptions and 256 career postseason pass attempts. His average of 1 interception every 85.3 attempts is the 10th highest in NFL history. Okay? And again, you want to just keep saying that this has all to do with the fact that he's got A.J. Brown and Devontae. That's so absurd because I don't recall people saying these types of things for the playoffs when Patrick Mahomes has Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, when Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Like we're just gonna pretend that only Jalen Hurts has ever had apparently support. I mean, it's just absurd. I mean, it really, really is. Like Troy Aikman was just throwing to lawn chairs and desk lamps out there. I mean, it really is. It's just outrageous. Okay, so Jalen Hurts, okay, in his 2 seasons, in 22 and 24, when he had competent coaching and had his full strength roster, relatively speaking, with A.J. Brown and Devontae, but although Saquon 1 year, Saquon not the other, etc., etc. These were his numbers. Okay, he had 7. This was his totals. It was a 6-1 record, 2 Super Bowl appearances, the Super Bowl MVP. Obviously lost in the Super Bowl, but over 1,000 passing yards, 7 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, a 73.3% completion percentage. 106.8 passer rating, 340 plus rushing yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, 16 total TDs, and a 16-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So again, since this is, everybody wants to kind of downplay what he has in terms of when he has a great roster or whatever. Let's look at Patrick Mahomes. When he had his great weapons, when he had Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, literally Hall of Famers. I'm so confident that the NFL world would rather have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce over A.J. Brown and Devontae. In 2018, Patrick Mahomes, in his 2 games that he played, had a completion percentage of 59.7, 573 total yards, 8 yards per pass attempt, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 98.9 rating. Okay? In 2019, the year that they actually won the Super Bowl, all right, in those 3 games, he had a 64.3% completion percentage, 900 total yards, 8 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 111 rating. Interesting. 2 interceptions in that Super Bowl too. In what year is this now? In 2020. Again, continuing to have these elite special weapons, okay? Had a 65% completion percentage, 850 yards, 7.3 yards per attempt, 283 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 90 rating. And then the final year that crew was together was in 2021, passer rating of 118, completion percentage of 73. Finally did something pretty spectacular that year, 1,000 yards, 8.7 yards per attempt. What was his touchdown interception ratio of 11-3? So again, it's so interesting that Patrick Mahomes has had all these seasons with a great roster, with great weapons, elite weapons, has a completion percentage of 59.7, okay? 64.3. I mean, it's just kind of crazy to me. 65 here. And yet we just want to act, 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I mean, really? Really? And yet we want to dismiss that everything Jalen Hurts has done as just, well, he has great weapons. Well, then why is it that with quarterbacks who have also had great weapons don't put up numbers like this? In the 2 years that Jalen Hurts had great offensive weapons, he put up literally historic numbers. I want to know why these other quarterbacks who have had great weapons over the years don't put up historic numbers like Jalen Hurts has done. That's what I want to understand. That's what I want to understand. And I want to understand why someone like Patrick Mahomes, when he had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and when it was winning, and had again, obviously also had some historic runs in his own right, but why people were not saying, well, and you say, well, the numbers. Jalen Hurts also does tremendous things rushing as well. Like, he's right. He does not just pass the ball 500 times a game, but we can stop pretending like that's how Patrick Mahomes keeps winning his games, because I'm pretty sure he's really only won like one Super Bowl in that regard. One, and it wasn't even really that clean of a Super Bowl, quite frankly. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes threw 42 times, okay? And he had a 61.9 completion percentage, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 78.1 rating. I'm sorry, that does not lead me to conclude that Patrick Mahomes just passed his way into greatness to win that Super Bowl. That would be obscene. And then in the following Super Bowl, he threw 49 times, 53.1% completion percentage, 270 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then it's interesting. He then won that next Super Bowl that he played in against none other than the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's weird. He only threw for 182 yards and under 30 passing attempts. Oh, that's so weird. I thought Patrick Mahomes only wins when he throws just like, I thought that's the only way that the Chiefs win. That's so weird. That's bizarre to me. I don't get it. Weird. Very weird. It's just we keep making stuff up here. We really, really do. I mean, and it's funny because I'm just using playoff stats here. The most important games in the NFL. We're not even talking about regular season. We're talking about the most important games throughout the season. So, I don't know, man. It's funny, you want to keep talking about that he's not putting up stats and this or that, and it's just like, and again, I'm not even going to go through all the rushing stats, because I've already done that so many times. And when I knew I was going to make a video like this before, I didn't know it was going to be through First Things First. Someone had told me about the Sims list and Jalen Hurts, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to do this. I was like, but I've already said so much of this. Like, how can I keep repeating myself? And I'm doing this a little too late in the video, but that's why I want to ask you guys, like, how do you guys want me to attack some of these things that are obviously so repeat takes? Like, I've already made like a 40+ minute video about Jalen Hurts and stats and all this, and that's just one of many. I mean, I got so many other videos out there, and this isn't just with Hurts. This is with a lot of topics, but it's just like I try to find different ways to have similar conversations, so it's not just repeat, which is why I was like, okay, let's look at Mahomes' stats with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Let's compare it to Jalen Hurts' stats with AJ Brown, Devontae, since we want to keep pulling him down for that, and trying to think of the different ways. Let's look specifically at Super Bowl and playoff records rather than going through Jalen Hurts being the leading rusher in the NFL, or whatever it may be during the regular season, like his passer rating in 2024. Like I keep trying to figure out different ways to kind of go about it. But then my only concern is that some of the great points that I bring up in a previous video, I don't necessarily bring up in this video, and it's like, I don't know. It's a weird situation to be in that I just have not found the right way to go about it. But I also, for people that are watching a lot of my videos, thank you very, very much, by the way. But I just also don't want you to keep running into just like the same thing again and again and again. But for those of you that don't watch all the videos, then you like maybe miss, and I don't expect everyone to be able to watch like a 40-minute video. Like, so I don't have the answer right now, honestly. I don't know. I still try to figure it out, and it'll probably change depending on the intensity of the moment, the importance of the importance, the level of importance of the topic that's being discussed right now. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's so funny because like because of some of these bonkers takes, like I wouldn't even people could think that I'm like this big massive Jalen Hurts supporter, and it's like it's not even the case. Like I'm just speaking the reality of the moment, which is why like I emphasize like I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts should be number one. I'm not saying that CJ Stroud or Jaden Daniels or any of these other quarterbacks won't go on to continue to have better careers than Jalen Hurts when it's all said and done. Or, you know, if you had to choose to start a franchise, which quarterback do you want, Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson? And it's like, I'm not saying like you got to pick Jalen Hurts. He's a winner. Like I'm like those have never been my arguments, but it's like when we get so twisted and we use things like Jalen Hurts doesn't put up stats, or yeah, Jalen Hurts, he's on a great team, so he wins. And it's like we're not actually having the complete conversation. Like that's what always kind of drives me crazy. And when you get random sound bites like Baker Mayfield is an awesome playoff performer, it makes me want to go remake that whole Baker Mayfield playoff, because Nick Wright said that going into the Washington Commanders playoff game, and I was like, I can't let this slide. And so I went through the highlights, like I did all the things that I could do. You know, like I mean, like I showed the moments how inflated stats can look, and it's crazy because when you it's the opposite with Jalen Hurts. When you look at the games, when you look at his most important games, the NFC Championship game, the 2 Super Bowls, like none of those stats are inflated. None of them. And if anything, he's got more work cut out for him, because in both Super Bowls, he had his running back neutralized. Like completely, he had to be the leading rusher in both Super Bowls. If you can't understand the pressure and the stress and the weight on your shoulders when you have to not only outpass your opponent, but also outrun your opponent, I mean, it's just crazy. And we want to keep inventing, well, it was because of A.J. Brown and Devontae. And it's like, that's insane. Joe Burrow had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Patrick Mahomes had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, along with Andy Reid. It just becomes so bonkers to me. Or this idea that Jalen Hurts just had all the time in the world, that he did not face pressure, when he did. The difference is that Jalen Hurts actually escaped the pressure. That's the fundamental difference, where someone like Patrick Mahomes simply could not. Jalen Hurts was actually pressured at a higher per dropback rate than Patrick Mahomes. And I mean like actual pressure getting to him. The stats are very binary in that regard. Everyone wants to pretend that the Eagles just had this historic, unstoppable O-line. They had a great O-line, undeniably. It was on par with other top O-lines around the NFL. That's what I'm saying. I've already done that deep dive in previous videos, and I'm just not going to go through it all. But I showed you the O-lines that Patrick Mahomes had in previous years. Those O-lines statistically had higher win rates in pass block and run blocking than what the Eagles had in 24. Yet nobody was going around saying that Patrick Mahomes was winning games because of a historically great O-line, but they're doing it for Jalen Hurts, and it's insane. Like it's actually insane. I think what it comes down to is, I was really thinking about this, and I've talked about this loosely like months and months ago. I think probably even before the season even started. And then I briefly mentioned in the comment section recently to Travis O'Shea, and I realized like, yeah, this was actually a foundational take of mine. Jalen Hurts' game is ugly. And understand what I'm saying there. It does not jump off the screen. The way how he runs, the way how he escapes pressure, for whatever reason, it just doesn't look as beautiful. You see Justin Fields, 2 inferior quarterbacks to Jalen Hurts. I know, shocking. But for whatever reason, when they run, when they escape pressure, when they do a little bit of a dance, it just looks better aesthetically. And so people think that means better. And it's just not the case. The way the Jalen Hurts' style of run, because it's more based off of power, and it's maybe like it's a little bit less kind of like twitchy. It's a little bit less fast twitch, so it's like it's not as just kind of sporadic. You see Lamar can dance, and it just looks different. And I think that's what brings down a Jalen Hurts optically. is that they can't appreciate actually what he does, his elusiveness, how he was able to have back-breaking runs in multiple Super Bowls that devastated the Kansas City Chiefs. And it wasn't just because it was some designed run and he was able to just get past everyone because of the fantastic O-line. I mean, did he benefit from some of that? Of course. Just like Patrick Mahomes did, had walk-in touchdowns against the Buffalo Bills, the most recent playoff series game against them. Man, we made another 30-minute video on this. Because it's like, the thing is, I can just keep going. There's just so many endless examples. Endless examples. And the fact that, this will be my last point. The fact that someone like Jalen can be so amazing in like a Super Bowl, and we want to kind of downplay that when all we talk about during the regular season is playoffs and Super Bowls. I mean, football on one side, Week 4 really matters. But we all try to pretend when the Buffalo Bills play the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 9 or whatever, everyone tries to pretend like this is this huge game. Who's got to win this game more? And we all talk about it, and I love it. I'm all for it. I'm okay to pretend like sometimes these things matter more than they do. Sometimes I like to poke holes in it. Sometimes I like to be the guy that's like, well, come on, let's have a real conversation about it. And other times I'm like, yeah, this matters. And sometimes in the moment it does feel like it matters. It feels like the Bills do need to win that game, or the Chiefs really do need to win that game. But when it's all said and done, we do know at the end of the day, it's a regular season game. If both those teams are going to be good enough to make it to the playoffs, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Josh Allen threw that interception or Patrick Mahomes fumbled the ball. It's Week 9. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So then you have a player now in Jalen Hurts who legitimately elevates in the playoffs, who absolutely balls out. Not every single playoff game, just like we see all of these other greats not ball out in every single playoff game. But we have none other than Jalen Hurts ball out, and yet we don't want to act like that's not worth its weight in gold. Like, that's the thing that I just can't understand. We praise Stafford's no-look pass, and it deserves all the praise in the world. It was awesome. It was amazing. I still remember it so vividly. But, like, we don't knock him for having Cooper Kupp and OBJ and Von Miller and AD and Sean McVay and blah, 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 and having to go up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh, the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Kansas City Chiefs. If that means anything. We all know who is going to be a better team in a Super Bowl? Who's going to be the harder team to beat? Out of any of these teams up here, minus Eagles, obviously, who would be the hardest game you could face in a Super Bowl? We know it's the Kansas City Chiefs. We know that. We know that. And that's what Jalen Hurts had to go up against both times. I mean, all anyone does is praise the dynasty and the glory and just the all-time historic greatness of the Kansas City Chiefs. And we're going to pretend because they didn't make the Super Bowl that means that you played the team that was better than them that year or something. Like, no. It's funny how people want to have that logic. But then when you're talking about the Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023, people will still say, the Ravens fans will still say, nah, the Ravens were better than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs beat you. Yeah, but that was a weird game. And listen, I may even be one of them, but it's just like, at least I can be consistent with the logic. I don't just choose wins and losses as a reference point as to why a team is better or worse. So I feel the freedom to be able to kind of do that in various moments when it seems to be the most logical conclusion. But it's really weird that people only want to choose that when it's not logical, but when it fits their own argument. That I find fascinating. When I know, truly, if we ask the NFL world and all the fans for the last 10 years, which team has truly been better? And when it comes time in the playoffs, which team do you trust more in the moments that matter most? The Baltimore Ravens or the Kansas City Chiefs? We know the answer. The Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills? We know that answer. The Cincinnati Bengals or the Kansas City Chiefs? We know that answer. And that's who the Philadelphia Eagles had to go up both times. They didn't get no cheap moments. Jalen Hurts did not get no cheap moments. I mean, Stafford didn't even win the MVP of his own Super Bowl. And I think Stafford's special. I think Stafford is elite. I think Stafford's career was ruined by the Detroit Lions. And that if he went to the Philadelphia Eagles, the dude would have like 4 Super Bowls. He could be in the GOAT conversation if he was drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, like, again, this isn't me bashing the Rams or bashing Stafford. It's just trying to have an actual, honest, 360-degree conversation. And I'll admit, it's hard to have because you have to keep so many variables in your mind at the same time. And it's hard to do. To get nerdy, it's called like working memory. It's hard to do. It's hard to be able to like remember all the thoughts that you have in any given stretch to be able to like reach the conclusion. Because Stafford was still impressive in his own right in the Super Bowl. And that Rams run was, a great run for them. But like history remembers it as just greatness and nothing else. Not great weapons, not great moves, not great coaching, not great defensive stops. Like, history doesn't remember any of that. But with Jalen Hurts, it just seems to be like that's all anyone remembers. And then they misremember things that are inaccurate, like, oh, well, his touchdowns are just tush pushes. That's not true. That's literally not true. Oh, well, he just had all day. He was never touched. He was never pressured. That's not true. And the problem is you're going to forget it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, you're going to forget it. And if you're now on your guard, we'll be having conversations like this, looking back. And you'll be like, oh, yeah, Jalen Hurts was on the receiving end of such a great... Oh, yeah, you had AJ and Devontae and Saquon and Cooper DeJean and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, man, of course, anyone could win with that roster. Then you have to really remember, well, wait a second, how did those games actually unfold? And what about when they really needed a third down? What about on 4th down? Oh, tush push? Oh, wait, no, it wasn't a tush push. It was 4th and 3. And Jalen Hurts threw like a 50-yard strike. Oh, okay. Oh, and they lost because Jalen Hurts fumbled. Oh, Jalen Hurts didn't lead them down to tie the game and convert a 2-point conversion. Not tush push, all himself. Oh, okay. Got it. It's easy to misremember. And I'm going to be the victim of it, too. I don't remember what happened in 2016 exactly. I'm serious, I don't remember. When Tom Brady came back against Atlanta Falcons, I can't even remember like a single play, honestly. I'm being honest. Like it's hard, man. I don't got it. 2019 when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, I remember where I was. I was in my kitchen because I was thinking the Chiefs were going to lose and I was actually upset. I was rooting for the Chiefs. I know, shock. And I was like not thinking that they were going to do it. I remember Jimmy Garoppolo missing him, but like I don't really remember. Like, do I really blame Jimmy Garoppolo for that pass? Was it a bad pass? Was it just one of those things that happened? It's like I don't really remember. It doesn't matter to me to even like look back on it right now. When I went back and looked at Lamar Jackson's playoff game against the Buffalo Bills, which I literally did today, so it's fresh in my mind, the one in 2020, I think it was the 2021, when they only scored like 3 points. Lamar Jackson had some awful moments in that game. He had some nice moments where he had to, do some of his magic. He had some awful moments. Absolutely like, oh my God, what did you just do? Chris Collinsworth had to work overtime to not just keep blaming Lamar, to keep highlighting Lamar's mistakes in crucial moments in a playoff game. And yet that game becomes forgotten, especially because he got knocked out of that game at the very end of the game. And it's a kind of like, oh, well, doesn't really matter. Like, because it's funny, when I remembered that game, or like when I remember it from today, before I watch it, I'm like, oh yeah, Lamar Jackson knocked out of the game, concussion. Yeah, I can't really blame him that much for that loss. And it was like, well, he didn't play particularly great for the first 3 quarters, and he got knocked out of the game at the end of the 3rd quarter. I don't think he was about to lead them back to victory. But yet in my mind, I have it filed away as kind of like, we can toss that game aside. It was early in his career. He got concussed. What do you want him to do? And I was like, well, maybe not throw a pick 6 in the red zone. Maybe not miss a wide open. I think it was Brown. I forget. See, I already forget, and I watched it today, and I was like, I already forget. Who was the receiver who he just completely missed? Lamar Jackson made a pretty nice little scramble, and then just threw the ball behind another receiver. Would have been a first. I mean, like, again, it becomes too many moments to keep up. It becomes impossible, which is why you then rely on random infographics. And that's the danger. There is a danger in something like this. And I know I'm not defending Justin Herbert here, but there is a danger in this. There's a danger in this. Because in Herbert's second playoff game, he got pressured just as much as Patrick Mahomes. And yet he technically did better than Patrick Mahomes dealing with a similar pressure rate. And inferior weapons and whatnot. And he also had a special defense. And yet when you look at the ratings and when you look at the called numbers, you're like, Justin Herbert kind of just did what Patrick Mahomes did to a degree. So it's just like, okay, if you're not going to rip Patrick Mahomes for that, then maybe don't rip Justin Herbert for that. That's what I talk about being consistent. And the response to that is not, well, Super Bowl and, and Patrick Mahomes has already proven that he could do blah. That doesn't matter. We're not talking about a career trajectory in some of these arguments. We're when we look at stats like this, we're zooming in. We're zooming in on specific games. So there's too much to say. There's too much to say. But I'll just leave it at that for now. Oh my goodness. Good golly, Miss Molly. All right, but those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think it's disrespectful to Jalen Hurts to be ranked 10th in Sims's top 10 quarterbacks of 2025? And what do you think about Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield, Stroud, and Stafford specifically above him? You can throw in Jaden and anyone else you want for that matter, but the main ones that Nick at least emphasized were Baker and Herbert, and said, I understand why Stroud and Stafford were there. So do with that as you will. But let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're all on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.